In this video I'm going to show you how to deal with fractional powers. So as an example, I mean something like 16 to the power of a half. The power on that number is a fraction. There are certain things you just need to learn. The power of a half is the same as square root. So 16 to the power of a half is the same as the square root of 16. Square root of 16 is 4. If you're doing higher level, you need to remember it's not just 4. It could also be minus 4, because minus 4 times minus 4 will also give you 16, because minus times a minus makes a plus. So it's 4 or it's minus 4. We write that down using this plus or minus symbol here. That means plus 4 and minus 4. So if you had 25 to the power of a half, that's the same as square root of 25, which is 5, but it could be plus 5 or minus 5. So the power of a half means a square root. If you had the power of a third means the same as cube root. So the cube root we usually write down with the root symbol, but with a little 3 outside it. And if we're trying to find the cube root of 8, that means we're trying to find some number that when we write it down 3 times and times that number together, we get 8. Now, if we have 2 times 2 times 2, 2 written down 3 times, 2 times 2 is 4, times by 2 is 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. 8 to the power of a third is 2. If we look at another one, if we look at 27 to the power of 1/3, again that power of a third means you cube root, which you write like that, means what number do we write down 3 times and times together to get 27? That one's actually 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27. If you're doing a non-calculator paper and you're asked to do cube roots, they're going to be fairly straightforward. You've seen the cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 cubed is 8. 3 cubed is 27. 4 cubed is 64. 5 cubed is 125. If you can remember those, that could be very useful. So far, all the fractional powers we've seen have got a 1 on the top. That's not always the case. We could come across something like 125 to the power of 2/3. If you have a fractional index, a fractional power, where the top number isn't a 1, first of all, change it so it is a 1. Because that's easy to deal with. We know that that means the cube root of 125. But you've got to use that 2 somewhere. Put that in brackets with the top number of the fraction here. If you think back to the laws of indices, where you have a power to a power, you times those together. So 1/3 times by 2 is 2/3. So those are the same thing. Now 125 to the power of a third is the cube root of 125. So that's what's inside the bracket. That still has to be squared. The cube root of 125 is 5, because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. 5 times 5 is 25, times that by 5, you get 125. So that's what's inside the bracket, and that has to be squared. 5 squared is 25. So 125 to the 2/3 is 25. And the trick there was to make sure you put a 1 there to start with, and then the top number of the fraction goes outside the bracket. So if I have a look at another one, I have a look at 81 to the power of 3/4. So the trick to use here is to rewrite it so it's 81 to the power of 1/4, and then that top number put outside a bracket as an extra power. Because the rules of indices say a power to a power, you times those together, and a quarter to the power of 3 is 3/4. So those are the same thing. Now, going through this video, we haven't yet come across what a power of a quarter means, but you're probably not going to be very surprised. It means the 4th root of 81. And then that has to be cubed. We mustn't forget about that 3. The 4th root of 81 means what number do I write down 4 times and times together to get 81. The answer is 3. 3 times by 3 is 9, times by another 3 is 27, times by another 3 is 81. So this bit here inside the bracket is 3, and then I have to put that power of a 3 there as well. I mustn't forget that. 3 to the power of 3 means 3 times 3 times 3, that's 27. So 81 to the power of 3/4 comes out to be 27. Let's have a look at two more examples at this at the moment. 1 to the power of 4/3. 1 to the power of anything is always 1. 1 to the power of 2 means 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 to the power of 3 means 1 times 1 times 1, it's still 1. 1 to the power of anything is always 1. Just worth remembering. So it's like a trick question, really. 1 to the power of anything, it's just 1. They are all equal to each other. If we have a look at another one, 9 to the power of minus a half. We said in the laws of indices video, if you haven't watched that one, it might be a good idea to see that one first, how to work with indices, that a minus power means 1 over. And then you just write this thing down again, but without the minus sign. So I'll just write the 9 to the power of a half underneath. The minus just became the 1 over. 9 to the power of a half, we said earlier that the power of a half meant you square rooted. The square root of 9 is 3. Well, it's plus 3, and it's also minus 3. So you could write it down like that, but usually with a fraction, the plus and the minus sign, rather than writing them down just by the bottom number, we put them in front of the whole thing. So we'd normally write that down as plus or minus 1/3. So you can get questions which involve minus powers and fractions all at the same time.